Hello, I am Tyler Kai, Associate Athletics Director of Development, and I'm thrilled that you all are joining us for our plug-in webinar series. Before we get started, I'd like to note a few pointers out on Zoom. While all viewers are muted, we do want to hear from you, so please enter any questions you might have in the Zoom chat function. For those of you that are on a computer, you can find that chat function at the bottom of the screen. And if you're using an iPad, the chat function can be found within the participant window at the top of your screen. It is now my pleasure to introduce Troy Dannen, the Ben Weiner Director of Athletics. Troy has been the Director of Athletics since December of 2015. During his time here, Tulane has experienced tremendous growth as a department, and even during this time of uncertainty, his leadership and our progress remain on a steady ascent. I'm proud to transition to him now so you can hear more about where we stand and where we're going as a department.
Tyler, thanks. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to join us tonight. It's kind of ironic that it was Friday, March 13th that we shut down athletics. And that happened to be 87 days ago today. And 87 days from today is September 3rd, and that is our season opening football game against Southeast Louisiana. So we are truly at the midpoint. It was ironic that when they asked me what date do you want to do, and we just kind of picked this one. Who knew? And who knew, 87 days ago how things were going to play out? I was just talking to Patrick Norton, our CFO and COO of the university today, and I said, think about 87 days ago when this happened, what our mindset and our biases were for how we were going to address and handle things and what they are today. And so while my plan is just kind of walking you through what we've done, what we're doing, and kind of what I think the outlook for the fall is, I'm going to start everything with a caveat and say most of what I'm going to tell you I wouldn't have told you 87 days ago, and I think a lot's going to change in the next 87 days. Probably nothing I've ever dealt with. I've been an athletic director 13 years now. I've been a senior athletic administrator for 21. Never been involved in anything this fluid. And things are changing from day to day, but I feel like we're in a great place. Let me start too. The premise when we went into this, and what I told everybody on the 13th of March, and we remind each other every day internally, is we want to come out of this better than we went into it. We want to come out of it stronger than we went into it. This is an opportunity for us. We're always thinking about competitive advantage in athletics. This is an opportunity for us to gain a competitive advantage over somebody that's maybe not doing things the way we're doing them. And it starts with the institution. I like to remind everybody all the time, the institution is, our health will be determined by the institution's health. The institution's in great shape right now. Probably better shape than it's ever been, and certainly better shape than it's been in my time here. So we're starting with the institution being in a great place. The cooperation and assistance we've needed, because we need different assistance than, this isn't about starting classes in August. This is about how do we get our athletes back in the summer? How do we kind of lead the way internally? How do we make sure we avoid some of the financial pitfalls that we've seen happen in other places? And we've been able to do that. And I'm sure some of the question and answer we have a little later, we'll talk about that. But I want to walk through from the time we shut down. It was easy to shut down. We shut down in about a week. And almost every day since then is about how do we ramp things back up. Our coaches have had a mission to make sure the student athletes felt as if they were still here. So there was contact every day. Everything other than being here is what they were to get. So they had daily interaction with the coaches. They all had workout plans to stay in shape. Being a Division I athlete is not an easy thing from a physical standpoint. So they've all had those workouts. And we had virtual tutoring. We had online access. Our academic advising staff was phenomenal. We actually, in the spring, as you know, Tulane went pass-fail. If you look with pass-fail, we had a 3.7 cumulative overall grade point average in the department. And even if you take the pass-fail out, which means students didn't opt into it, they took the grade, they would have gotten the grade that they got. It was a 3.31 cumulative grade point average in the department. That's higher than it's ever been in the history of Tulane athletics. So our student athletes did a remarkable job, and I think we supported them. The institution, flipping the switch to go to online education versus on-ground education in the span of a week to 10 days. Phenomenal job. So again, we went into this and started coming out of it academically running and in better shape than I think a lot of our peers did. I talked about the team meetings. I think one of the things that's been going on inside the department, our communication's been strong. And, you know, in a time of crisis, nothing brings an organization down faster than uncertainty and unclarity, loss of clarity. So as a staff, we've met twice a week, every week. You know, I've met once a week, every week with our league. I'm on 2 NCAA committees, and those have met every week. Our coaches are meeting with our teams. I've met with every team along the way, once or twice. So we've had great communication to let each other know where we're at. Again, with the objective being coming out of this running and not walking. So where are we at? A week from today, we'll have our first student athletes coming back to campus. Football reports over a 3-day period, June 15, 16, and 17. And they are here for about 5 weeks. They'll go through voluntary activities, weightlifting, conditioning, for a few hours a week. And then they'll start required drills in early July, it looks like right now, with a full bore practice camp as we know it, starting on schedule in August. And I think that's an important premise to everything I'm going to say is right now, we operate under the assumption that everything is on schedule as it was originally planned. I'm planning to play 12 football games. I'm planning to play September 3rd against Southeast Louisiana. We are planning to have, well, all of our athletes aren't here right now. We are planning to start phasing them all in as we normally would. So football will come back those 3 days. Both basketballs and volleyball will come back in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from there, which is June 29th, and they'll get back into their activities. The remainder of the sports will come back most likely as school is starting with the rest of the student body. When they come back, and I will say that every plan we've had, and by the way, if you didn't think our medical school was great and the people surrounding our medical school and our hospital were great, the assistance they provided us in making sure we're coming back to a safe environment, second to none. Our testing regimen, and testing is the key, and I've met with the football families. I'm meeting with the basketball and volleyball families tomorrow night to walk through the health and safety measures to ensure the student athletes are well taken care of, because that's the priority. We will have the most, to my knowledge, the most aggressive testing regimen in the country. I assume that when the season starts, it looks this way, that there'll be twice a week testing. So we will test all of our student athletes twice a week. When they arrive, they'll test, they'll quarantine until those results come back, and then they'll be freed with a negative test result to begin their participation. From that point on, they'll test twice a week for, couldn't tell you how long. We're also going to do the same thing with every staff member. Anyone that's going to be around the student athletes will also test twice a week. We'll have to test before we start. I have been to the office 3 times since March 13th. I will go in next Monday on what I think is going to be a full-time basis. Most of the staff will start coming in on what will more or less be a full-time basis as the student athletes start to come back. But the testing regimen and the health, safety, care, and prevention of everything for our student athletes and our staff is first and foremost in what we're doing right now. A lot of other things have been happening this summer, and I'll get to the fall in a minute, but you're hearing a lot about name, image, and likeness, and student athletes being able to capitalize on the value of their name, their image, and likeness, which they're unable to do right now. This has been a fundamental discussion in college athletics. It's coming to a head now. I can tell you we're probably about a week away from announcing at Tulane in cooperation with the Center for Sport. We'll try to be a leader in this when it comes to name, image, and likeness, and creating, while the rules right now that are pending will not allow us to broker those deals, the education we provide, the access we provide, and preparing the students to take advantage of the opportunity that's going to be given to them. One, you can say it's a recruiting edge, but two, we all know what the time commitment and effort and energy that they put into intercollegiate athletics. And if there's a way for the student athletes to benefit from it, we want to make sure we're leading the way and helping them do that. So if you want to look out in the news ahead, there'll be some news on that. Certainly the last 2 weeks since the since the murder in Minneapolis, there have been a lot of things happen with athletics and athletes around the country. And the only communication I've sent out so far was the statement that my leadership team with Charvie Greer as the senior women administrator and Monica LeBron who's the deputy athletic director and COO in the department, we put together a joint message for the student athletes, just to them. One, we wanted them to know we supported them. We wanted to know that we're listening to them. We wanted to know we were going to have their back. We also wanted them to know that they were going to have a pulpit in which it's a strong pulpit in athletics, in which they need to speak their mind and say what they believe. And so over the course of the last couple of weeks, we've had a lot of conversations in the department, and I'd be naive if I thought I had a handle on things coming in. I didn't understand what I didn't understand that I've learned over the last 2 weeks. There have been some very sobering moments for a lot of folks in the athletic department as the students have had a chance to talk to us, and we've had a chance to listen. Normally, we don't listen. Normally, we're telling them what to do. We're telling them when to go to practice. We're telling them when to eat. We're telling them when to go to bed. This has been a great time to listen. And in the next, again, week, 2 weeks, I think you'll start to see a lot of things, because one of the things I didn't want to happen was for all of us to engage in a great conversation and then nothing to happen. And I hadn't made any public statements until we talked to the student athletes. I talked to the SAC, which is the leadership group of our student athletes, last night. Later this week, our staff in whole, all 130, 140 of us, will meet with all of our student athletes just to listen. And I think we'll come out with some action steps and action plans on what our student athletes want. As I told them, this is their department. I'm here to manage it for them. And make sure that we're operating and representing in the way that they want it to be operated and represented to the best that we can. And they have a great handle. They have an intolerance for issues of social injustice, as do I, as do our leadership team, as do I hope all of us do. And how we message that and how we action that is a key in the next few weeks for us. But I feel like this is finally an opportunity where it's just not lip service and a whole bunch of messaging, and then we're going to go on with something else. I feel like we're actually going to have an impact, and our student athletes have some great ideas, and so that lies ahead for us. And what else lies ahead besides getting the athletes back is actually getting to the field. And a lot of people want to know what's going to happen in the fall. As I said 87 days ago, I said, there's no way in creation that we're not going to play football and we're going to have fans in the stands. And I've probably gone through 10 different iterations in my own mind of whether we will or whether we won't. I'm very, very certain right now that we'll be playing football in the fall, barring something unforeseen interceding. I'm doubtful. In fact, I think it's certain to say we're not going to have a full set of fans in the stands. How many, if any, that's what I don't know. The protocols for playing are going to be remarkable. And there's a lot of things out there and a lot of rumors flying around. And those protocols probably won't get finalized for another 6 to 8 weeks. But I can see things such as the sideline being 100 yards long so that we can social distance on the sidelines. I can see coaches wearing masks. I can see officials wearing masks. I can see the down box, the chain crew wearing a mask. I can see things looking a whole lot different based on what I know today. And again, as I said, the caveat is this is based on what I know today. When it comes to fans in the stands, local governments are going to have the predominant say in this. We're going to have our own rules, the institutional rules on bringing athletes back. The NCAA and the league and the institution will have some rules and policies as far as how do we come back, what do we do when we're back, and what are the rules of engagement, if you will, on our own campus. But when it comes to what do the games look like, the NCAA certainly has a say on the on-field, but local and state governments are going to decide the spectator issues. And what happens in Florida may not happen in Louisiana, which may not happen in Texas. To that end, if we were to play a game today based on the limitations in the city of New Orleans, I'm not sure we would have any fans at all. So we're playing all sorts of contingencies. We've social distanced the stadium and divide the stadium up into blocks of 2, 4, and 6, which is our normal ticket size groups, and spread them 6 feet out and kept them off the aisles and had one pathway. And And I found if we social distance the stadium, we have about 5,400 seats. We have 6,000 season ticket holders. That's not counting player families and player passes. That's not counting visiting players who receive complimentary tickets. That's not counting any students. That's not counting the band. So there's a lot of complications ahead for us when it comes to what does the stadium look like. Part of why we came up with a ticketing plan that we came up with was, one, to provide some assurance that if we aren't able to accommodate everybody, that there's still a value in their investment in tickets. If we are able to accommodate people, trying to make them understand what our priorities are. And I will tell you this, my two priorities right now when it comes to the first people that go in the stadium are player families. The second group that goes in the stadium are students. And I'll say that because it's going to be a different world when they come back. And I think the feeling, the ability to celebrate, the ability to enjoy themselves, the ability to engage in campus, I know that's a priority for the president and certainly a priority I share. And so making sure the students have access to the stadium will be a high priority. And then just figuring out what best to do with the spectators. Our staff has probably spent as much time on that in the last 3 weeks as anything, figuring out what to do in the Glazer Family Club. It's complicated because how do you social distance? And, will social distancing of 6 feet be the rule of thumb in 87 days, or will it be 3 feet, or will it be something different? So we're going through a lot of iterations. What I can tell you right now is I don't have an answer for spectators. I don't have an answer for, is homecoming going to look like homecoming from a game standpoint? I can tell you that my motivation is much like everybody else's. I want everybody in there that feels that it's a safe place to go and wants to come, and we're working to that end. I would guess August 1, maybe a little after that, is probably our time frame when we need to really start making decisions. We have not printed any tickets. We're doing tickets, those heat press tickets that'll come out the last minute, so we have all sorts of flexibility in how we're going to seat the stadium. When we look ahead to the fall, everything, I keep talking about football, but everything we're talking about football also applies to volleyball, it applies to cross country, it applies to all the fall sports. The basketballs, when they begin in October, it will apply to them as well. I'm operating as if there isn't going to be a second wave that's going to debilitate anything. I'm operating as if it is going to be business as normal. Because right now there is no other way to plan. We've got all sorts of alternatives. I'm on one NCAA committee that, frankly, we looked at moving all the fall championships up to Thanksgiving weekend to compress, just like we compressed our academic calendar, to try to make sure we were one, reduce travel of our students, but two, minimize the impact of potential second wave of this. I think the decision's been made not to do that. But again, there's all sorts of contingencies being made, and I keep going back and reminding our staff, 87 days ago, for the most part, we still thought this was centered in Wuhan, China. And now the impact that it's had on all of our lives and changing the game. Now, one part of the game that has not changed at Tulane, we're not cutting any sports. We did not cut any positions. We did not cut any salaries. That goes back to one is a strong, healthy, stable university. But I'll also tell you, I think the athletic department's done its own pretty good job of getting into a much more stable and healthy position. Now, in large part, our alums have stepped up in amazing ways. We've got a lot of capital projects done. Now those capital projects are on hold, except one I'm going to talk about until we get people back on campus and construction starts again. But folks have stepped up for us in amazing ways in my 4.5 years. And I credit the Olive and Blue Society. I met with that group early in this. And I said, the Olive and Blue Society is why we're not cutting positions. The Olive and Blue Society is why we're not doing salary cuts in athletics, because we've had $7.5 million of commitments to the Olive and Blue Society in the last 4 years. And it's given us a stable foundation that we didn't have before. That's really, really important going forward. The people that are struggling now are the people that were struggling when they went in, and this just exposed it and maybe took the last wheel off. We were rolling when we went in, and we'll roll when we come out of this. jumping around a little bit, but I did want to talk about the turf. We made quite a production out of, we're going to do a new turf and sending out a fan survey and let the fans decide what they wanted it to look like. And I think those of you who were interested in that saw the pictures. The one thing that's happened, I don't know that we've put any video up yet, but the turf is out. A week ago they started with the turf removal. And so the new turf will be in the stadium for the first game, which was a pleasant surprise that project was able to go. But the fact that it was outside and it's a limited group and allowed that project to go ahead. And plus, I felt there was a safety issue with the old turf that from a health and safety standpoint, I wanted to get that new turf in. So that project's going ahead, and we'll see some pictures of that. I think we're doing some time-lapse photography to display with everyone here shortly. The one project that Tyler may get mad at me because I'm talking about this, but we're close to announcing Don and Laura Peters, the renaming of the academic center, the name of Don and Laura Peters, and greatly expanding that. The academic center looks like it looked in 1989 when it was constructed. And today, we have more students, we need more space, but we need to be able to work with our students academically in the way that we work with them now, from a tutoring standpoint and with some group spaces. So that project, once we're able to start construction again, we'll get going. And the team shop that you remember down in the lower level of Wilson Center will not be there any longer. We're taking that space over to turn that into academic space plus some other space. Team shop will have a portable presence on game day, and maybe a better presence on game day than it's had in the past. There still will be a team shop on campus, however. So a lot going on, and I've been just rattling things off, but I think the value of this, certainly for me, and listening to what you have to say, and maybe doing some question and answers, Tyler, and seeing what's on people's mind about athletics once I'm through that. So with that, fire away.
Absolutely. So we've got a lot of folks that are submitting questions. So thank you for that. Continue to submit questions in that chat feature. But some that have already been submitted, Troy, talking about early in your address, you spoke about the spring and our student athletes and our coaches as they prepare for competition. How are they managing their coursework and managing that preparation for competition and return to competition?
Well, let's talk about the spring sport athletes for a second. If there's anyone that we should just feel really bad for, it's those who trained all school year, and then all of a sudden, we had 2 swimming athletes headed to the national championship meet the week after everything was shut down. We had some sports that hadn't even started yet, outdoor track. Baseball was off to a historical start, and all of a sudden that was all pulled away. The NCAA did allow us to offer renew the scholarships, even if of the seniors, even if they were out of eligibility, to come back one more time, and we did do that. About $500,000 worth of scholarship aid was granted again for this upcoming year. That was for everybody that asked. Not everybody asked. Some people were ready to move on. Some people had graduate assistantships and jobs lined up, but those who are wanting to come back are coming back. And so we'll have a few extra people to social distance this year, but they are coming back. And the interesting thing about training now is everybody's been left to their own volitions for about 3 months, and a lot of gyms were shut down. Not everybody has a weight set at home. We saw some people who get crazy creative with things they were lifting, to stay in some shape. But we're going to find out when everybody's in shape next week when they come back, because it's a grueling regimen. Part of the value, though, of bringing everybody back early in football is one, not only to get them in shape, but New Orleans shape is a different shape. The getting acclimatized to the heat and humidity and the exertion that's put forth, we need some extra time here, and so it'll be good to get everybody back and get them going.
Yeah, and you'd mentioned the spring sports student athletes. So as it relates to baseball, we had a couple questions come in through the chat on this as well. What does that mean for roster sizes for incoming freshmen? Obviously, the MLB draft is this week, so there's still some unknowns. But could you speak a little bit on what this means for roster sizes for the spring?
Yeah, baseball's in a tough position as a sport nationally. Now, the seniors that come back, let me go back. Baseball's allowed 35 players on the roster. That's an NCAA rule. Baseball is the only sport that has a roster cap, and that's 35. The seniors that come back are not counting it against that cap. They were given a special dispensation. However, it's assumed, particularly a place like Tulane, I think we had 6 guys drafted last year. It's assumed that you will have, a number drafted. So we obviously recruit more than we have spots to fill. The draft went from 30 some rounds down to 5 this year. Again, a victim of COVID. So, we may have a couple of guys, Altoff and our center fielder may get drafted.
Hudson Haskins.
Hudson Haskins.
Yeah.
Sorry for the name slip. He'll get mad at me.
He'll
May
forget.
get drafted, but we might have 6 or 7 guys drafted if a full draft. So there's a waiver right now in the NCAA hallways to take off the roster cap. I do not know if it's going to happen or not. If it does not happen, so we're going to bring extra guys back and extra freshmen in, and it's just the competition for one of those 35 roster spots is going to be something else. It means kids are going to get cut that have never gotten cut. Kids getting cut that are quality enough to play Division I college baseball. So baseball has some challenges to it. I think Coach Jewett's had good conversations with all of our student athletes, and now we wait to see if that waiver happens or not.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, you're right. It's going to be very complex for sure. Now, I do want to transition a little bit. We got a lot of questions prior to today's webinar. It talks a lot about the fall sports seasons, a lot of uncertainty around the fall sports season. So is there anything that you believe will be critically important for all of our Tulane supporters that come to games or don't come to games for them to know about the fall sports seasons?
Well, first and foremost, the decision is going to be made with the health and safety of the participants in mind. I've had a lot of people, go, oh, that doesn't make any sense, or that's ridiculous, and I don't believe in that. But we've got great medical guidance. We're relying on guidance from the outside, from local and state, and in some cases, national government leadership. But locally, we're making all decisions in the interest of health and safety of the participants. And so whatever we do is with that in mind. And as I said earlier, everyone's motivation is the same as a fan wanting to get in the building. I will promise you, the players want people, the coaches want people, everybody in the department wants people. And you know what? It isn't about the ticket revenue. It isn't about the giving revenue. It is about the fact for me that I know, as most of you know, what these guys, what the women in volleyball, what the men's and women's what everybody puts into this sport. And to go out there and be able to participate in front of people and show what they do and have the excitement of the people, hit them. Nobody wants anything but that. But if the guidance says we can't do it, then we can't do it. And so I think that's the first thing to know. Second thing to know is I truly believe whatever happens in week 1 is not what's going to be in place by week 12. Frankly, if you forced me to give you an answer, which you are, I would say whatever I think we'll have more fans in the stands middle of the season than we will at the early part of the season. The real challenge is going to be how do we, of those 6,000 season tickets, the usage rate is 74% on a normal date. So how do we allocate those 6,000 tickets? I want to make sure we allocate them to the 74% of the people that are coming and not the 26% of the people who aren't going to come. And, how do we do that on a game by game basis? I mean, there are great challenges with it, but I couldn't have a better staff and better team around me to work through those things. And I'm really appreciative with Tyler here, Tyler's leadership now overseeing the development operation for all of Tulane athletics. I think we're in a better place than we've ever been. So get ready as we get a little closer. I feel like we've done a decent job of communicating, but I didn't want to say things for the sake of saying things when I didn't know them to be true. I think get ready to see a lot of communication, particularly if you're a ticket holder. You're going to see a lot of things as we try to keep you, as we get closer to August and details start to come into closer vision.
Yeah, we'll stick to that topic too. Got some questions about other parts of the game day experience. So any idea of tailgate, what tailgate would look like, any adjustments or limitations that may come with tailgate?
I would say 100%, I don't think there'll be tailgating on campus. Now, that decision's not been made, and it's not mine to make. But I don't think campus, I think campus will try to limit the number of visitors to Central Campus over the course of the year. Again, we're not going to build a bubble, but I think the more you can bubble it, the better. So I think on campus, I think people are going to have to find other places to tailgate. I really do. And I know that's going to discourage attendance. It's going to discourage some folks' interest because tailgating is a big part of game day, but I just don't see it happening right now. Again, that may change, but I'm trying to be honest about what I anticipate right now.
Absolutely. And I think here's a question that's come up a lot in the chat as I'm scrolling through. Kent Laplace has asked this question, a few others. If they cannot attend games, if we cannot have all of our season ticket holders in the stands, what would the viewership be? How much of our games will be broadcast on television for our viewers to be able to watch the games?
Well, every game will be on. As we walk in, this is part of the reason, the games are important now. Our television contract starts new this year, and it's significant. It's 3 times what it was in the past, which is millions of dollars in additional revenue to the department. It's very, very significant. It's allowed us to continue to invest. It's the reason we're not playing Auburn and Ohio State anymore, that we don't have to play buy games to try to invest in our programs. We actually have the television contract, and we can play a schedule where you go out and you say, this is who we should be playing and these teams we should be beating. So the games will all be on. The plan would have been for all the volleyball games to be on too. We're building a production studio on campus to fulfill the requirements of the new television contract. Basically, for all games that aren't picked up on an ESPN network, it's our responsibility to do a full HD digital broadcast of those games for both basketballs, volleyball. Likely will be some other sports, men's and women's tennis, that we'll also do to broadcast. Like all other construction projects, that one's on hold. So I don't think we'll be up and running in the fall. But that'll certainly, I think we probably have 2 or 3 months left in that project, and we'll get that up and going in the fall, and then be ready to broadcast by December. But all the football games will be on, whether it be on ESPN Plus, a few of them, or whether it be on one of the ESPN family of networks. Very good.
I want to, on that same note, a little bit about competition. You mentioned traveling to away games. As it relates to COVID-19, could you explain how the department developed the regiment that we're using to not only test our student athletes, our coaches, and our staff, and then what that means even potentially for pregame and postgame testing as it relates to competition?
Yeah, and I would say, again, another caveat, it's not finalized yet, but I think the intent is we test on Thursday, 24 hours later. Those who test negative will get on the plane and go. Those who don't, won't. And there'll be some decision made about those who are close contacts, meaning roommates and things like that. That protocol's all been developed by TISM, Greg Stewart, our team doc for 3+ decades, and TISM and the School of Medicine. We haven't really been involved in that other than to talk through it. We're also, Doc Stewart's also kind of leading the protocols for the American Athletic Conference and what that looks like. But back to this, I think we test, the plan right now is you test on Thursday, you go, you'll really be sequestered and quarantined, if you will, as a group on Friday, like we normally are when you travel in football. And there'll be another test on Monday. And now that may change. There may be, if saliva testing, a 5-minute saliva test is available, by the time we get there, we may do a game day morning test as well. But all those medical protocols were developed really with our med school and TISM. And Greg Stewart's highly respected nationally, and so he's tapped his sources nationally. And the other thing I would tell you, there's very little that we do originally in college athletics. We all steal, beg, and borrow from someone else. So there are a lot of protocols out there, and you glean what you think is the best out of everyone else's protocols. We do believe that the additional testing is the best way to go. There are some schools that are not testing when they come back. Some, I think, are doing it for financial reasons. Some are doing it because they are getting different guidance from the medical professionals about the value of testing. Our guidance is it's critically important. We're also going to do antibody testing, and whether antibody testing is legitimate or not, our medical people think it's important. And if you combine positive antibody test with negative COVID results, maybe that does tell you something. But it's information, and there is no harm in doing it. So test as much as we can do to keep people in a safe position.
Well, I think what's been encouraging to me, really more from the outside looking in, is the fact that we do have the medical school right here, and the partnership that we have with Center for Sport and Doc Stewart. We have a tremendous amount of resources at our disposal that allow us to really be leading the way, which leads me to my next question. You talk a lot about us coming out of this running and raise the bar. And I'm curious to know what it means to you when you say raise the bar for the athletics department.
Well, since I got here, I've used the term set the standard, that a place like Tulane should be able to set the standard that everyone else aspires to achieve. And so when we make any decisions, you should, before you make the decision, you'd say, is this what everybody else would do? Is this what everybody else should do? Well, people are going to look at this and say, man, I wish I did that. And so if that's your standard, so one is making all those right decisions with the right foundation in mind. But we've just done something in football that isn't a big deal at Alabama, but it's a big deal here, right? We won back-to-back bowl games, first time we've ever done it. Raise the bar means we have expectations beyond that. And when we won 3 and 4 and 5 games when Coach Fritz got started here, it would have been crazy to say, we're gonna win 8 games, and we're gonna be happy till we win 8 games. You got to win 7. You got to win a couple bowl games. So in everything we do, I feel like we're in a great position academically. We've had a higher GPA each of the last 9 semesters since I've been here. Raising the bar means we have expectations to be even better next time. Graduation rates 95% in the department, ranked 7th in the country of all FBS playing schools, tied with Duke, just behind Stanford. You know what? It should be 96. Raise the bar. Right. Get a little bit better, do a little bit more. When Tyler's asked, when he develops his budget and he says, this is how much money we're going to raise in the Oliver Blue Society next year. No, it's not. Add 10% to it, because we got to raise the bar. We got to do a little bit better. And at the, 4 years from now, 5 years from now, I go back to when I first got here, that adds up. There's a big distance now between where we were 4 years ago, but you didn't get here by jumping to it. You walked to it. And it's hard. It's hard to make up ground on people, because everybody else is trying to. Nobody else is standing still. So when we have opportunities like this to find a way to raise the bar when people are just hoping to hold the bar up, that's why we got to take advantage of them.
Yeah, and speaking of an Olive and Blue Society member, Rich Schmidt asked a couple questions in here. One about the conference and how it's doing as a whole. And then secondly, how recruiting is going for our sports right now.
Well, first, from a league standpoint, we're kind of in a sweet spot in that if games are played with limited fans, our new television contract is kicked in this year. So there's significant money. Most of us, for the first time, are going to generate more money from television than we do from ticket sales. Not all of us, but most of us. The league hasn't actually instituted any cuts, financial cuts. Much like the autonomy leagues above us, while the leagues below us have had to make some cuts. Mountain West reduced the field size of some of its championships. So from that standpoint, from a financial position, we're actually in a good place. Now, hey, if the fall goes south, I think everybody in the country is in a bad financial place in athletics. Doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter how much money you've got in the bank. But as it sits right now, I think the league's in a good place. Recruiting, you've talked to the coaches, they have not been able to recruit. The NCAA has shut down on campus, has shut down them traveling off campus. People can't even come on a voluntary visit. So recruiting has taken place like this through Zoom. I think for the most part, the coaches will tell you it's going remarkably well. Ron Hunter, in the spring, he he added 3 or 4 people online. And one, it helps to have, Ron Hunter's presence and his personality. But I think they would tell you that we feel like we're in a pretty good place. Uh, you know, it's really hard to tell at this point. You don't get a lot of commits that mean a whole lot at this time for the upcoming year. But the ability to get recruits to campus, one, build and maintain relationships. Two, in all honesty, we have great things at Tulane, but if you walk into Cincinnati and if you walk into Houston, our facilities pale in comparison. And we're not recruiting against facilities. Now we're recruiting against people. And I'll put our people up against anybody else's people. And the sincerity, the honesty, and the caring that they have for the sons and daughters of the parents that we're talking to, I think that's why we are in a good position now, because we stripped away all the bells and whistles and the shiny toys, and it's just down to people and this part of recruiting. So I think that's why they've had success.
Absolutely. And I do need to switch back to COVID-19 just for a moment. Some questions that are coming in about, as we travel to other locations, will the teams we travel to have the same type of testing protocol? Will that type of protocol be conference-wide through the NCAA mandate? What does that look like?
Well, I know for sure it'll be conference-wide. The interesting thing is the NCAA has not yet taken a stance on national game day protocols. Actually, Dr. Stewart had a call with the NCAA today. I think he will have an influence, and the AAC will have an influence, because our plan right now, that's not finalized, but it's pretty close, is one of the first plans that's out there, and it's pretty good. It's comprehensive. So that's still coming. The question I have, just like the rest of you, is when we go to Northwestern, are we playing with the Big Ten protocols or the AAC's protocols? And what are the Big Ten protocols? When we go to Mississippi State, same thing. Southeast Louisiana is coming here. What protocols are they going to operate underneath of? So certainly when somebody comes here, I would assume they're playing under our rules, unless the NCAA rules are stricter than ours. Same thing when we go on the road.
Yeah, Doc actually just put in a chat here and said, "Don't you wish I was there to answer some of these?" So.
No, actually, I'm glad Doc's not here, because if you ever have had Doc answer a question, you might get 1 or 2 in tonight. And he should be happy. I have said all sorts of nice things about him, but I'll say one more, since he's apparently paying attention. Doc Stewart's a godsend for us right now. He's in the Hall of Fame, and I thought when we put him in the Hall of Fame last year, he was going to stop helping as much as he's helped, but I don't think he's ever been busier than he is right now.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Troy, would you have a question? And it came up recently too in a post, and it's regarding LSU and football. And so we've got an LSU football question. So I don't know if you have any comment on the LSU football game.
Which LSU football game is that?
Yeah, any type of plans for an upcoming series or
well, I've said this since I got here, and I told the former athletic director, now I have a much better relationship and much more respect for the current athletic director, and our conversations are much more productive. But home and home, or one in the dome. We are not going to take bye games any longer as a program. That is not our position. One, we did it twice. We did it at Ohio State. We did it with Auburn, and Willie and I did it, and we were on the same page in doing it. And we did it for this reason. It's not a game you expect to win, but we had investments that had to be made, and that was a way, to 1.6 and 1.93 million. It's a way to generate a lot of money in a hurry. But now with the television contract, our goal is to schedule 12 games you expect to win, including all 4 of those non-conference games. And so we're not going to play a bye game, which means we're not just going to go up there and get bought. Secondly, I've pitched the playing a neutral in the dome a lot. There hasn't been any interest. I have been talking to some other, what I would call the blue bloods, about playing a 1 in the dome at some point in time. We'll see if we can't make that work on the schedule. The home and home thing, our stadium is big enough for Oklahoma to come. Don't tell me it's not big enough for anybody else to come. We have Oklahoma, Mississippi State, Kansas State, Iowa State, Northwestern all coming to our stadium. And I'm not about to give up. We had a lot of donors step up and invested $70 million in a football stadium. I'm not about to tell them it's not good enough to play a football game in it. So that's my position on it right now. And I'll say this, and I don't know if anybody's on here that'll misquote me or not, but if I'm LSU, I'm not playing Tulane either. I got nothing to gain by losing a game.
I agree. I think you put our stadium up against any within our conference and really across the country. Yeoman Stadium is a spectacular home. There's not a bad seat in that entire place, and it is a lean, mean fan experience type of venue. So I couldn't agree more. Do you want to talk a little bit about a little bit more COVID-19 related to game day, but this to our football team, and as it relates to travel party or to band and cheer and their role that could or could not occur this fall, should we have any type of restrictions on fans in the stands?
Yeah, the band and cheer question is starting to come up a little bit in some of our discussions. If there aren't spectators in the stadium, it's one thing. If there are spectators, it might be another thing. I think right now there's a bias to having no one on the sideline except those who would be in the team box, meaning the players and the coaches during the game. Now, I don't know if that'll change. I don't know if that'll evolve. I heard today there was discussion of maybe the team box extending the entire 100 yards of the field in order to allow for greater distancing and spacing inside of it. It seems like social distancing, that may be an extreme to say we're going to social distance everybody and then go put them on the football field and line them up 11 on 11 and run a play into the center of the line of scrimmage. But yeah, we're going to keep them separate on the sidelines. But nonetheless, a lot of options in place. I'm desperate for the band to be there. There may be a scenario where the band is there but cannot go on the field. I just don't know yet. My personal bias is going to be to have the support functions, support units, if you will, if that's what we want to call shockwave and cheer and the band. I want them there and I want them involved in the game. Again, I think that the stadium capacity and who and how many we're allowing in the stadium will dictate some of that as to whether that is allowed to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, just a reminder, we've got about 12 minutes left. So if you have any final questions, please make sure you submit those into the chat. We'll try to get to them if time allows. And do want to transition a little bit to Troy, to the recent events that we've had. Can you tell us a little bit more? You'd mentioned you met with SAC, and our student athletes will be meeting with the staff upcoming. So as it relates to social injustice, how are student athletes planning on using their platform to speak out on those social injustice issues?
Well, one, I think that their voice needs to be heard. And I've said this just from a personal standpoint. I've listened a lot, or maybe I've heard a lot, but maybe not listened enough. And not, there are a lot of things that I didn't know that were going on that I'm starting to hear that were going on. And not things that happen inside the department like we're seeing happen at some other institutions, but just some of the experiences that our student athletes deal with on a day-to-day basis. And, you always said, we treat our student athletes like they're children. And I don't mean that they are children. I mean that we're trying to protect them. We're trying to provide for them. We're trying to keep them from ever getting into a bad place. And this is a bad place that we need to help our student athletes as they need it. One is just create opportunities for them to talk and opportunities to listen. I don't want to get ahead of them on some of the things they've thought they could do or thought they've wanted to do until they decide to do them. But I do know, and we've had to see a lot all over the country, voting, registering to vote, the importance of voting. I think that's an initiative a lot of student athletes, a lot of departments have taken. I volunteered to them if they wanted to take the national election day and say we're not going to have any athletic activities that day, no practice, no nothing. One, to make sure there were no hindrances to their ability to vote, but two, to call attention to it and just as an annual reminder that not just voting on that day, but voting throughout the year is important. that seems to be something that's resonating strongly with them. There will be some things, I think, on display inside the stadium. Hopefully fans will be able to see that. Maybe murals and things like that they'll use as an expression standpoint. But I think listening to them and not talking at them as much as we do is something that's very important right now. And that's what they're asking for. I've offered to create a graduate assistantship for a student athlete that's immediately out of school, so that their voice, while their voice gets to me in a lot of ways, this would be maybe a direct. I do not have a graduate assistant that reports directly to me. Maybe we could do that, so that voice would be directly with me, and we would have that liaison, and I could better understand the issues as well.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. There are some questions that are now coming out, and I do want to acknowledge a few things that are coming out in regards to the band. Some good ideas here that certainly as a member of the external staff, we can take a look at if it's allowed for our band or students to be on the sidelines, and really appreciate the comments that are coming in regarding the band. Tulane University Marching Band, I do want to comment. I traveled to Mobile with them for a Mardi Gras parade over in Mobile, and it was a spectacular performance. They are certainly good advocates for the university and the athletics department. Troy, speaking on the later part of the fall and really transitioning into the winter sports, are there any discussions that are being had about winter sports, men's basketball, women's basketball, as it relates to what is happening today?
No, there really isn't. It's one, I think everybody's got the fall sports first and foremost in their mind, and two, there are a lot of things, and really the thing that we can't control is whether there's a second wave of this, and it impacts our ability to compete with fans. As I said, if we had to play a basketball game today, there wouldn't be many people in Devlin, that's for sure. So I think we just got to wait and see. The plan is going to be status quo. We're going to play. As far as I know, we're going to play with fans, and we're going to have a great atmosphere. And I think both teams have high expectations. It will be nice on the women's side not to have UConn in the league, and have everybody look at the conference championship in a different way. By the way, the women's conference championship's going to Fort Worth, to the same building that the men's championship is in, and both those two tournaments will run back to back over an 8-day period. So, one, I think it creates a neat opportunity for Tulane fans to go to Fort Worth and support men and women back to back in those championships next year. So I think there's neat things ahead in basketball, and I look forward to where both the teams are going to be. Absolutely.
Definitely some exciting things that are going to be coming this winter with men's and women's basketball. Got a couple questions that I want to go back to. Well, I guess here's one as it relates to basketball. I don't know if the schedule has been finalized or if you can make any comment on the schedule, but any upcoming big games in Fogelman and Devlin?
I don't think it's been finalized. I think we were waiting. The plan was to go to China to play the University of Washington. I think the Pac-12 is waiting a little bit, but I certainly do not expect to go to China for that game right now. I know we will still play Washington. If it's not in China, I don't know where it will be. I don't think it'll be in Seattle. And if the China trip's postponed, I'm sure hoping that we have an opportunity to go there in the future. It would be a neat opportunity for our student athletes. As far as what's on the docket ahead, the one thing I have told Coach that to do a marquee opponent every year, like we did North Carolina in the Dome, but to do a marquee opponent every year in the Smoothie King Center, rather, that opportunity is there. We're willing to do that. If he finds it to be a recruiting incentive, we're willing to play one game a year there. But I don't think the schedule is quite finalized, really, because of the China thing and not knowing where we're at there. And then the league schedule is usually about 1st of September, so we got a little bit of time.
Absolutely. Looks like we've got. I want to ask this one final question, Troy, and it does relate a little bit to the university making an announcement about the fall semester schedule. Will that impact any of our scheduled games that we have over the course of those 12 weeks?
Nope. Nope.
Easy enough.
Everything, basically fall break goes away and there's a little bit of compression. So it really doesn't impact us. The challenges right now for us is homecoming is not an athletics thing. Homecoming is a development office, alumni relations thing, and figuring out, the game is just a part of the homecoming event. So figuring out, we have homecoming, we have Hall of Fame weekend and some of those other things that we would like to schedule, not knowing for sure yet exactly, what we're going to be allowed to do on campus. That's a challenge back for us right now.
Absolutely. Well, we're just about out of time, Troy. I don't know if there's any final statement you would like to make. Otherwise, we can wrap it up.
No, I know there's more questions coming in, and I think, shoot me emails, and I'd love to answer them one-off, or put your phone in there and I'll call. And we can talk about anything you want to talk about. It's Dannen, Dannen @tulane.edu. So shoot me a note directly if we didn't get to a question. I'd love to get information out there, and I don't want to just get stuff out there unless it's stuff that people want to know about. I think you'll start to see, again, more from me in the coming weeks. I don't like to guess publicly in the media, but again, I think we'll have some things finalized and we can start talking about them in more absolute terms. Appreciate y'all being here. It means a lot that you're paying attention, and athletics means something. And it's getting better and better. And as Tyler said earlier, we're going to continue to raise the bar. We're going to continue to set a standard, get better and better. We'll have our challenges. We got one right now, but we'll come out of it running, and we'll be in a great place for you. Absolutely.
And I want to thank you, Troy, for talking with us today. And for those who are still tuning in, you can view today's webinar and previous webinars at alumni.tulane.edu/plugin. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again soon, and roll wave.